On the afternoon of June 13th, 1944, just 1 week after D-Day, a crippled American bomber limped across the skies of western France. Below it lay occupied territory, flak batteries still alert, German fighters still hunting. Above it, black smoke streamed from a burning engine that refused to die. Inside the aircraft, 8 men waited, counting seconds, listening to metal groan, wondering which would come first: fire, explosion, or the order to bail out. At the controls sat First Lieutenant John C. Morgan, co-pilot of a B-17G Flying Fortress from the 326th Bomb Squadron, 92nd Bomb Group, United States Army Air Forces. His aircraft had already been hit once, then again, and then came the moment every bomber crew feared most. One engine was on fire, not smoking, not damaged, burning. Little did they know that what happened next would become one of the most remarkable acts of aerial endurance and human determination of the Second World War. By June 1944, the air war over Europe had reached a brutal intensity. Following the Allied landings in Normandy on June 6th, the 8th Air Force was tasked with a relentless mission: cripple German transportation, aircraft production, and fuel supplies to prevent counterattacks against the beachheads. The 92nd Bomb Group, known as the Fame's Favorite Few, operated from RAF Podington in Bedfordshire, England. Flying 4-engine B-17 Flying Fortresses, their missions routinely took them deep into enemy territory, often without fighter escort for long stretches. On the morning of June 13th, Lieutenant Morgan's crew was assigned a bombing run against railroad marshalling yards near Amiens, a key logistical hub feeding German forces in Normandy. The target was heavily defended. Intelligence reports warned of concentrated 88mm flak batteries and increased Luftwaffe fighter activity. Morgan was not the aircraft commander that day. That responsibility belonged to First Lieutenant Joseph Daly, the pilot. Morgan, a former civil aviation instructor from Ohio, served as co-pilot. Calm, technically gifted, and respected by his crew, he was known for steady hands rather than bravado. The aircraft carried a full crew of 9 men: pilot, co-pilot, navigator, bombardier, flight engineer, radio operator, 2 waist gunners, 1 tail gunner. Each man knew his role. Each man also knew the odds. By mid-1944, a bomber crew's life expectancy was measured in missions, not years. By 1345 hours, the formation was over the target. Bomb bay doors opened. The aircraft flew straight and level, making themselves perfect targets. At 1352, a flak shell detonated just off the port wing of Morgan's B-17. Shrapnel tore into engine number 2, the inner engine on the left wing. Oil pressure dropped instantly. Flames erupted along the cowling. Inside the cockpit, warning lights flashed. The engine began vibrating violently. Standard procedure was clear: shut it down, feather the propeller, extinguish the fire. Morgan reached for the controls. The crew deployed fire extinguishers. For a moment, it seemed to work. Then the fire came back. By 1400 hours, the flames were visible from inside the cockpit, licking backward toward the wing. Worse still, the propeller refused to feather. It windmilled freely, creating massive drag and feeding oxygen to the fire. The aircraft began losing altitude. German fighters appeared minutes later, Messerschmitt Bf-109s, darting through the formation. The gunners, opened fire. Tracers streaked past the burning wing. Inside the bomber, fear gripped the men. The flight engineer shouted engine readings. The radio operator relayed damage reports. Smoke seeped into the fuselage. Lieutenant Daly, the pilot, struggled to maintain control. The aircraft shuddered under asymmetric thrust. The burning engine threatened to ignite the wing's fuel tanks. Lieutenant Daly, the pilot, struggled to maintain control. The aircraft shuddered under asymmetric thrust. The burning engine threatened to ignite the wing's fuel tanks. By 14:10 hours, Daly turned to Morgan. "I can't hold her," he said. Moments later, Daly collapsed forward onto the controls, unconscious, likely from oxygen deprivation and stress. Suddenly, command fell to Morgan. With one engine aflame and the pilot incapacitated, the situation was catastrophic. Morgan took control immediately. He ordered the crew to administer oxygen to Daly and move him aside. With only 3 engines and one actively burning, the B-17 struggled to remain airborne. Standard protocol in such a situation was brutal, but necessary. If an engine fire could not be extinguished, the crew was to bail out before the wing failed. Morgan knew this. Every man aboard knew it. Yet when Morgan looked back through the cockpit window, he saw something that changed everything. The navigator and bombardier were still at their stations. The waist gunners were helping the injured. The tail gunner, isolated at the rear, had no clear escape path. If Morgan ordered bailout now, not everyone would make it out in time. Below them was occupied France. Parachuting down meant capture, or worse. The fire intensified. Flames burned for over 3 continuous hours, fed by leaking oil and airflow from the unfeathered propeller. The wing structure weakened. Instruments failed. Smoke choked the cockpit. By 1500 hours, the bomber was flying barely above stall speed. At any moment, the wing could shear off. Morgan made a decision that defied training, logic, and survival statistics. He would try to fly the aircraft back to England. For the next 3 hours, Morgan fought the aircraft. He adjusted rudder trim constantly to counter-yaw. He managed throttle settings to reduce vibration. He ordered the crew to prepare for ditching, but kept them at their posts. At 16:30 hours, the French coast came into view. The aircraft crossed the channel at barely 500 feet. Flames still visible. British rescue boats tracked the bomber, expecting it to crash at any moment. The fire finally began to subside as fuel was exhausted. The engine still burned, but weaker now. Approaching RAF Manston, an emergency airfield in Kent, Morgan requested immediate landing clearance. Fire crews lined the runway. As the bomber descended, the damaged wing dipped dangerously. Morgan compensated with full opposite rudder and aileron. The landing was violent. Tires burst. Sparks flew. The aircraft skidded to a halt just short of the runway's end. Fire crews swarmed the plane. All 8 surviving crewmen were pulled clear. Moments later, the burning engine collapsed inward. The wing buckled. Had the landing been delayed by seconds, the aircraft would have disintegrated in midair. Lieutenant John C. Morgan climbed out of the cockpit and collapsed on the tarmac, completely exhausted. The official damage assessment concluded that the aircraft had been on the brink of structural failure for over an hour. Engineers determined that bailout had been the expected course of action. Morgan's decision saved 8 lives. For his actions on June 13, 1944, First Lieutenant John C. Morgan was awarded the Medal of Honor, the United States' highest military decoration. The citation praised his conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity above and beyond the call of duty. He survived the war. The men he saved carried that day with them for the rest of their lives. In the vast machinery of World War II, this was one aircraft, one crew, one burning engine, but it stands as a testament to what individual courage could mean amid industrialized war. This was just one of countless untold stories from the Second World War. Subscribe to WWII Records as we continue to bring these forgotten chapters of history back to life.